What's good, YouTube? It's Auston Holleman back with another reaction video, and I was recommended this video by this woman called Traveling with Christian, I believe it is, and her video is titled "Why I Left the United States Again." So apparently she's an expat, or she's just a traveler. I don't know. It's my first time seeing her page. She has 161,000 subscribers, so make sure y'all go subscribe to her channel. Let's figure out what she's talking about in this video. I haven't watched it yet, so let's see what's going on.
It doesn't matter how good your life looks from the outside. What really matters is how you're feeling on the inside.
I know we're only 7 seconds into the video, but just that statement by itself, guys, that's what I was saying when I left the United States. People used to always look at me like, oh, you know, you're so handsome, you're doing so well, you're successful, you got your own place, your own car. And I still was extremely unhappy with my life in the United States. And like she said, on the inside, I was feeling like I was just in a rat race, well, in a hamster wheel, I guess, and I was going nowhere fast. But let's keep watching.
For the past 2.5 years, I have lived in what many people consider to be the most perfect place on the planet. A town that is so high in demand that people from around the world spend upwards of $1 million per bedroom to call my neighborhood their home. Despite all of that, I left, but not without some regret. You know, being out here on a Monday morning and just paddling around the islands in front of my house, it seems crazy to leave. Like, why would you leave such a beautiful paradise like this? But I think that things go deeper than just the surface of living in a beautiful place, living in a very comfortable place, and living an idyllic existence. And if comfort brought happiness, then billions of people would be really happy. And so even though I definitely appreciate where I live and it's going to be bittersweet to leave, I still think that it's the right time and it's the right thing to do.
And that's the exact same way I felt when I was leaving the United States. I was comfortable. My apartment had air conditioning. I had food. I ate every day. I was a healthy weight from eating the right amount of food every day. Everything was set up good. But I still felt like it was the right decision at the right time for me to leave. I actually felt like I should have left sooner. But it happened at the right time.
But leaving, you always start to appreciate some of the things that maybe you took for granted. When you lose something or when you leave something, you start to really think more deeply and appreciate what it was that you had in that moment. And that's why it's so important to live in the moment and live each day to the fullest and try to find pieces of time within your day or within your week to really do something for yourself and to really engage with your surroundings and just live.
And me living in Dallas, Texas, one of the fastest growing metroplexes in the country, or I think it is the most fastest growing metroplex in the country, I had a hard time gaining experience with my surroundings. Like everywhere I went, it's actually depressing me talking about it. Everywhere I went, the people weren't on that same type of energy. And people all in the United States always try to make it seem like it was my fault. Went to Brazil, went to Colombia, no problem interacting with people around. And these aren't Americans I'm talking about. These are Brazilians and Colombians. Interacting with the people around me, no problem. Come back home, huge problem.
And so here I am 1 week later in Amsterdam. It's official. I'm nomadic again. And you know, feels really good. As soon as I got on the plane, I felt like all of my adrenaline and anxiety just melted away. And then I also felt that way when I landed here in Amsterdam at the airport just a week ago. So now I'm sitting here watching other planes take off and land, and it's just surreal that I'm actually starting this new chapter of my life here today. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you know that this lifestyle is nothing new to me. It's something that I've been doing for most of my adult life, living nomadically, living abroad and traveling through different countries. But this time is different. because this is the first time that I have been living abroad since 2020 and the pandemic started. And it's the first time that I've transitioned into this lifestyle after so many consecutive years living back in the United States. It's actually the longest I've lived in the United States since I was a college student. So even though I've done this before, and even though I help people live abroad and become digital nomads, I'm still human, and it still felt to me like a hard change in my life. And so that's why I'm making this video, to hopefully explain some of the reasons behind why I made this decision and possibly inspire you to make some changes in your life if that's what you're feeling like you need at the moment.
I would say for me, it wasn't a hard decision. It was nerve-wracking coming up to that decision. But once I arrived in Thailand, before I moved to Brazil, I arrived in Thailand first. I was there for 2 weeks, and then I went to Brazil. When I arrived in Thailand, I was like, no, I'm glad I did it. I'm just being outside of the matrix, being outside the United States is just relieving right away.
During these past couple of years living back in my home state of Florida, there were moments when I thought maybe I was getting a little bit too comfortable. I started feeling again like maybe I would never leave. I mean, I had my friends there, my family there, I had my stuff there, I bought furniture, I rented an apartment, I signed a long-term lease, I bought plants, I started growing tomatoes.
So it all depends on what her, and I don't know if I missed this or not already, but what is her exact reason for leaving the United States? I haven't found it clearly yet, but let's see.
On my balcony, and yeah, I just thought that maybe that was it for me. Maybe I had gotten all of this traveling out of my system when I was younger, and maybe it was time to live a quote-unquote normal life. And so it did feel like a big change to re-enter this lifestyle and give up a lot of the comfort and convenience and feeling of safety and security that I had developed over the past few years. But what starts to happen after you've lived in one place for a long time, and maybe you can relate to this, is that you start to feel stuck. Like the longer you've lived somewhere, the harder it becomes to leave, and the more that inertia starts to set in.
Now, I can relate that I did start to feel stuck when I was in Dallas, but I wouldn't say it was harder. Like, there was no inertia stopping me from leaving. But I know exactly what she means by being stuck. I just said at the beginning of the video, I felt like I was in a hamster wheel.
And it takes even more energy to get unstuck and to shift the momentum of your life in a new direction. And that's what I started to feel after a couple years of living in the US. It was like it took me a whole nother year of thinking about moving before I actually went into action. And I think this is because of a quote that I think that comes from Tony Robbins, where he says that change only happens when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of taking action. And I think that as human beings, we can all relate to it being easier
100%
to think about change than it is to actually make changes in your life. But having put myself in uncomfortable situations before, I knew that once I crossed that threshold, that it was time to take action, and so I did. Now, there are plenty of logical and completely valid reasons why you might want to leave the United States or wherever your home country is. And those were the reasons that I left the first couple of times. I mean, every time there's a national election, half of the population threatens to move to Canada. Although I am very grateful to have been born in the United States, I am well aware of the problems that my country has.
And I say that all the time. That's why I would never renounce my citizenship. Being in the United States, we are very, very privileged. But there are some issues that are deal breakers. But not enough of a deal breaker for me to renounce my citizenship. There's too much of a benefit of keeping it.
There's the intense political divisions, there's the high cost of living, the skyrocketing inflation, the dysfunctional healthcare system, the gun violence, the consumer culture, the constant anxiety.
You notice she said rat race too. That's the same thing I said. So yeah, I'm not the only expat that's feeling these ways.
And rush of the rat race and keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, there's plenty of issues.
Guys, keeping up with the Joneses is basically U.S. culture. You can never be enough. And I know you guys, and don't start that BS. I know that you should always be wanting to self-improve, but when do you get a return that you would be satisfied with it? It's not that your standards are too high, because apparently going overseas, especially the second and third world countries, some people say, oh, we're lowering the goal. But to people like me, that's enough. But in the United States, it's like I knew I was always selling myself short by remaining in the United States.
That go on in the United States. But if I'm honest with myself and with you guys, the real reason why I left the US this time wasn't because of all of the things that are wrong with America. It was more personal reasons. Now, I am not saying that traveling is going to solve all of your problems. I mean, it probably will create more new and different problems that you didn't have when you were living at home. But one thing that travel can do is that it can give you a new perspective. It can give you a little bit of a reset and a fresh start in life.
And Brazil was my reset. When I first went to Brazil in February and I got back, it reset my way of thinking. That's why I said I didn't talk to anybody when I got back. 3 months later, I went again. And it was another reset, because in between that time, I had a reset from February. But then being there 3 months, I slowly started to try to socialize and live a good life in the United States. And I started to think, damn, maybe it is something wrong with me. Went back to Brazil, had a reset, good time in Brazil, came back, I knew it wasn't nothing wrong with me. Then I started to feel that way again a little bit. Each time it got better, but I started to feel that way a little bit. Went to Colombia, got another reset, and that time, actually, when I came back, I said, next time I'm gone for good. And that I'm still going to this day, going on 6 months.
And I know that each time that I've traveled to a new place and each time I've made a big change, it's always resulted in personal growth and learning. I mean, travel to me is the best real world education, but it's also the best education about who you are in this world.
I have been trying to tell you guys that for a while. Traveling shows you exactly who you are. That's why I'm going to different countries. That's why I'm trying to go to almost every single country that I can, that's safe, that I can go to. I at least want to do 50 in the next 2 years. And what traveling has taught me is what type of people I like to socialize around. That's why, for example, one country I did not love, let me say. I liked it, but I didn't love it, was the Philippines. The way how people socialize there didn't fit me. And that's fine. That's why we have other countries to try. I went to Brazil. That was like literally 100% perfect social setting for me. Colombia, I would have, Medellin to be specific, I would have gave it a 90%. Thailand, I would have gave it an 80%. Vietnam, I would have gave it an 80%. But the Philippines, it wasn't me. And the advice that people was giving me down to build a social circle in the Philippines was trash. Like, chasing people down the street and walking around with your phone number on a sheet of paper and sliding it to somebody you find attractive. No, thank you. I'm not doing that. I'm a grown adult. I'm not in high school.
And the longer that I stayed in the US,
that's not even high school. That's elementary or middle school. Let's keep going.
And in my daily routine, the more I felt like I was losing that sense of connection with the outside world, outside of my local community, and the more I started to forget who I was before the pandemic. The first thing that happens when you announce a decision of this magnitude is you get met with a lot of pushback. My friends, my family, everyone was like, why? Like, why would you leave this beautiful life that you've created, this beautiful place? So many questions. And I couldn't answer all of those logically or rationally. It was mostly just a feeling that this chapter in my life was closing, and it was closing fast, and it was time to move on. A problem that many of the naysayers face when you're telling them about your plans to make a big life change, like quitting your job or moving to a foreign country, is that they are stuck in the status quo. There's two.
Yes. If you guys go through my comments and look at the haters, look at everybody that's talking crazy, or even people, your family and friends that are talking crazy. I want you to pay attention to where they are in life. The people that do live streams and talk bad about me for hours and hours because they have no life. Clearly, if you can do that, what are they doing? They wish they could do what I'm doing.
Two main problems facing modern day humans are physiological and evolutionary programming, and also our societal and cultural programming. You see, both of these sets of programmings are to keep us safe and to help maintain the status quo and the species for that matter. And so to break out of that is very difficult. And it's understandable that people have questions and people want to play devil's advocate when you do something.
Let me tell you, I'm already an expat and I'm living overseas. But this is a great video. The way how she's explained this is very, very relatable, and it's inspirational to me. And I'm already overseas, which is keeping me inspired to stay going.
Something that's out of the ordinary. The other thing you have to contend with is your brain, because 95% of your thoughts are the same every day. And unfortunately, the majority of those thoughts are negative. So this can lead to feeling in a rut. And I was definitely feeling that rut. And the quickest way to get out of a rut is a pattern interrupt. Changing your behavior, changing your habits, or even changing your country. When you travel, everything is new, everything is different, everything is challenging. And even though it's not always comfortable, you always feel more present and feel more alive. And that is the feeling that I've been missing and craving during these pandemic years. I want to
100%
reconnect with that spark of life and that aliveness that only comes through new experiences, personal growth, and meeting new people. On a similar note, I've noticed over the past couple years that I have not acclimated to the US culture. Like I mentioned, I live
Never. Remember, I told y'all when I got back from Brazil, I did not speak to anybody. Once you see what other people live like outside the United States, you experience other cultures, you can't readjust. It's just, and these are for people that are going to other cultures. I'm not saying you went to Cancun and didn't leave the resort. I'm not saying you went to Jamaica and didn't leave the resort. I'm not saying you went to wherever else that was super touristy that you're only seeing other Americans at. I'm saying that's why I said that about places like Pattaya, Bangkok, and Phuket. You're going to these places, and yes, it's in an Asian culture, but there's so many foreigners, there's so many familiar faces if you're from the United States, that you're not really getting a culture shock. But when you go somewhere like Colombia or Brazil, where there's not as many, there's still a lot of people that are foreigners in Medellin, but there's not as many as Bangkok. Bangkok is the most visited place in the world, by the way, if you want to argue about it. But you get a culture shock because you get to experience living with those actual people.
Lived abroad for 20 years. I came back, and then last year I published a video about how I see the US living abroad and the reverse culture shock that I felt after 6 or 9 months of living here. And now that hasn't gone away. I still feel like an outsider in my home country, and I still don't relate or identify with a lot of the topics of conversation and the wants and the desires of many of the people in my community.
Absolutely.
I'm not interested in shopping.
Yes. Absolutely. Guys, I stopped shopping once I started traveling. It's not because I was broke. It's because I just wasn't interested in, like, I was like, I'll wait until I get overseas and put my best foot forward. Go back to my older videos. I'm wearing a lot of the same clothes. And if you watch my videos from the past 2-3 months, I've been shopping a lot. And I'm not buying clothes off the street. I'm buying clothes from the same places I would have in the United States, like Zara and H&M, same place. So it's not the price difference. It's just I didn't have that motivation to try to impress or, put my best foot forward when it came to. I used to, but once I started traveling, I was like, oh, this is crazy. Why am I putting so much effort in dealing with Americans when I go over here and I'm getting like, people are appreciating me.
Don't want to talk about politics. I don't have any office politics or work drama to talk about. I'm not interested in gossip. And there's a lot of people here, of course, but I just really miss the conversations that I have with travelers and with locals in other countries. I'm also a bit weirded out by the whole consumer demand cycle in the US. It's like you can just tell what time of year it is by walking into a grocery store or walking into a pharmacy at any given time of year. You've got a Valentine's Day that turns into St. Patrick's Day, that turns into the 4th of July, Labor Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's like
the United States is a milker for money. You will get milked living there.
From one day to the next, everything changes color from pink to green to red, white, and blue. And it's just like a little bit weird. And I feel like I'm living in this weird twilight zone. It's like everything is the same. Like they just changed the flavors of the candies and the foods and the colors of the packaging. And it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but like I quite literally feel like I'm living my own version of Groundhog Day, and I can't tell if it's 2022 or 2020 sometimes. Another big reason why I'm leaving is because I can, but not just me. Hundreds of millions of people have found a new sense of work freedom, of location freedom, and they are taking advantage of it. So whether you're moving throughout your country or throughout the world, so many millions of people have been
If you have remote work and there is nothing stopping you from leaving the United States, I'm not talking about people that have remote work but their grandma's on life support and they don't want to leave yet. Not talking about y'all. I know a guy that when I first started traveling, he said he worked completely remote online. And I was like, dude, if I were you, I would have been took off. And he's like, yeah, I know I could. And if you ask me, I think he's still there in the United States. I think he's cheating himself. Like, you're paying all these high prices when you don't have to. You're really shorting your life if you have the ability to travel and live elsewhere by staying in the United States. But I've covered that one a lot, so let's go to the leaving your comfort zone.
How much of the world you've seen, there's always more to explore, and there's plenty of places that maybe you're even afraid to go, but magic is what is on the other side of fear.
Exactly. And when people tell you about places like Colombia and Brazil, they make it seem like as soon as you get off the plane, you're getting robbed or shot, or they say Brazil is a war zone, so as soon as you get to your Airbnb, some artillery's gonna come flying out of the air and blow the whole building up. But I said I'm still gonna go, and I fell in love to the point where I cried when it was time to get back on the plane to go home.
As Jen Sincero says, you can't experience new lands from the confines of your comfort zone. The truth of the matter is that true fulfillment comes from doing the hard stuff, the messy stuff. It comes from discomfort. It comes from stretching and challenging yourself. And one of my favorite ways to do that is through travel. Now, as grateful as I am to be from the US, I don't want to live a normal life. I'm much more interested in what people like Mark Twain have to say about it, which is if you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of time to pause and reflect over the past couple years, and I've come to the conclusion that I want to take the path less traveled. I want to live an unconventional life. And to all of my friends and family and people who don't understand why I would leave a good thing for the unknown, I just have to say that it doesn't matter how good your life looks on paper. It doesn't matter how good your life looks from the outside. What really matters is how you're feeling on the inside. So did I make the right decision by packing up all of my stuff and setting off around the world again with a one-way ticket? I don't know. If you were to ask me right here, right now, I would say yes. I'm feeling very at home here in Amsterdam, and I'm very much looking forward to my next destination of Portugal. I think that.
Well, guys, that's the end of the video. I appreciate you guys coming through and watching. Make sure you guys go subscribe to her channel. She looks like she has a really good channel. I would be happy to review more videos. If you want to see a collaboration between the two of us, go reach out to her on her channel for me. I'll do my due diligence to reach out as well. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, especially expats, how traveling and taking a one-way ticket made you feel. And for everybody that is thinking about traveling, when you get the opportunity, up and leave. Don't even second guess it. If you really enjoyed that, give the video a like. Well, like the video anyway. But if you really enjoyed that, make sure you share the video with somebody else you think may enjoy that or is thinking about becoming an expat themselves. And if you really, really want to support the content, you want to keep things going, my Cash App is $Auston and my PayPal is austonholleman@gmail.com. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all in the next video. And remember, it's really that bad.